Okay, there it is. Looks like we're ready to go. And there we go. Okay. Okay, so I just noticed that Dr. Rob Carter of Creation Ministries um, just uploaded a video saying you can't know who the sons of Noah are, or the lineages of the sons of Noah. He said, well, he used to think that maybe you could know it, and now he thinks it's too complicated to know determine who's who as far as the lineages of Noah. And of course, Nathaniel Jensen put out that T is the lineages of Israel, the Jews, and stuff like that. So that further complicates things, throws a monkey wrench in the whole thing. So here I am. I'm uh, I'm not a geneticist, but I have studied people groups my entire life. I'm a missionary kid from South America, and I look at people's faces and their features and everything because I was the minority growing up. I was the one that everybody was like making fun of or yelling at, cursing at on the street. I was the minority. I was the outcast. I was the one in South America, growing up in South America. And of course, if if I ever walked over to people, started talking to them, then they would immediately change their demeanor and they would, be friendly and everything. But just walking on the street, I was the American, the North American. Anyway, that's my background and the reason why I got interested in genetics. And because I was raised as a missionary kid too, and so I know about the Table of Nations, and you know, this all connects together. This is all very significant. I was in the Amazon when when there was a book that was published about the five missionaries that were killed by the Auca Indians, uh, who called themselves Waurani Indians, and the book explained when they read to us when we were kids in the Amazon, which was like right straight across the equator, from us. You know, they read to us about how the wives of the missionaries went into the Indian tribes, and then eventually the the son of one of the missionaries that was killed was basically adopted by one of the people that killed his father, and because he said that he didn't have any Indian skills. He couldn't make a bow and arrow. He couldn't do this. Couldn't do that. How could he survive if he doesn't know anything? So he taught him everything. But it shows the power of the truth of the Word of God, able to change lives because the homicide rate was like over 60%, and it went down to near zero in the entire tribe, whether or not they became Christians or not. So the Word of God is the salt of the earth. It has an effect on even Democrats and whoever hears it. So we can't stop speaking the Word of God because it'll go and do what it was intended to do. But anyways, Dr. Rob Carter came out with this video saying you can't basically know who the sons of Shem are. And of course, if you've been following my videos, I've been identifying every single lineage that there is of the descendants of Noah. The 16 grandsons of Noah, have them all identified, with the exception of the F1 and F2, which are Semitic lineage, but they're too totally separate lineages on the Y chromosome tree in two totally different places. So they must have run out of letters or something, and they named one F1, the other F2. There's even an F3 and stuff. But I have yet to identify which is the lineage of the Arameans, which controlled the trade routes, which went toward India. And all I have to do is find out that lineage that goes to India, or that went in the direction of India. That's probably the Arameans. So I'll identify that one as the Arameans. And then the other lineage would be the Lydians, if it's a separate, totally separate lineage. So, but anyways, he came out with his video. You can watch it. I'll even show it. I'll just go ahead and show. I'm not going to play the whole thing because if it's not a real bad video. I just but because he goes through and says that he used to try to assign who is who, but then he says it's too difficult now. But since I don't belong to any ministry or anything, I can say what I believe. And Dr. Rob Carter also, he already downplayed the idea about the breaking up of the continents too, which I've found a lot of evidence to support the breakup of the continents after the global flood, after the sediments were deposited. Of course, the breakup had to have been after the sediments were deposited. I mean, come on, people. No. But it was Rob Carter downplayed that and said, "Oh, that's not right." It's like, yeah, let's talk about the evidence. So let's talk about the genetic evidence of who the grandsons of Noah are, the 16 grandsons of Noah. Because Rob Carter didn't make any suggestions one way or another, who's who or what might be what, or why someone can't be this or that. He didn't even say anything about the genetics, the S&P markers. Didn't mention the S&P markers, didn't say anything. He just said it's complicated, which it is. It's very complicated, complex. But I've been able to identify with the movements, the migrations, and everything of all the different people. I've been able to match them up to the historical people that actually made those movements. And of course, you would have to be able to identify them early on in history, because after a while, everybody gets all mixed up, and it's be hard to define and say who's who. But the Y chromosome is a single lineage. Now, Dr. Rob Carter says, well, it can mutate one way and it can mutate back, and so you might not even know. It might converge on the same lineage again, but no, because there's too many markers. There's too many markers, and even if one mutated back, the other ones are not going to mutate back. But please, anyway. But so the Y chromosome does identify who you are and where you belong in the family tree, which I found to be very interesting, because I never fit in anywhere. And so when I found out I fit in somewhere, I thought that was pretty neat. I'm actually, fit in somewhere into the human family tree. Because even when I was a kid, my parents were modest and everything, and the St. Patrick's Day would come around, and another kid would say, "Are you Irish? Are you Irish?" I said, "I don't know." Turns out I'm over 50% Irish, and the rest is Scottish and stuff like that. But the interesting thing is that I actually belong somewhere in the family tree. Not only as a European or as from the British Isles and Scandinavia as well, but I have a Y haplogroup marker. I have a Y chromosome marker that identifies my specific paternal lineage all the way back to Noah. So I can follow my lineage, trace it back all the way to Edinburgh, Scotland. And since I have a Y chromosome markers, the S&P markers, I'm identified as an I1 M253, which links up to the J lineage. It's an IJ lineage, so I have the IJK S&P marker that identifies me as being the descendant of Arpachshad, who shared that marker, the IJK marker, with his uncle Japheth, who of course is the son of Noah, and Arpachshad being the son of Shem. So I'm a direct descendant of Shem by way of the I haplogroup, which went into Europe. And Dr. Carter says that that's a little bit confusing because they were supposedly the first Europeans. They were in Europe fairly early on because the tribe of Dan went into Europe fairly early on. But it's not just because they went into Europe doesn't mean they're not Semitic, because they're identified as being Germanic, but they're not Germanic. I mean, you can call them Germanic if you want, but it's Semitic. It's a Semitic lineage that went into Europe. The I1 seems to me to be the migrations of Dan, went up to Danube, all the way to Denmark and all. And there were several different migrations. There was not just one, but several different ones. But there's two separate lineages that seem to be separate from each other. It's I1 and I2. And I found it hard to believe that I1 and I2 is all the tribe of Dan. So then I realized, after studying a little bit more, I found out that, well, there was another sailing Israelite tribe. There's another Israelite tribe that sailed through the Mediterranean Sea, and that is the tribe of Asher. And it seems to me the tribe of Asher is more concentrated in southern Europe and the Mediterranean more than northern Europe. So I've identified I2 as being from the tribe of Asher, separate from the tribe of Dan, which both, of course, are descended from Jacob, known as Israel. But anyways, he didn't think that you can identify these people. So I just wanted to go through a little bit. Let me just go ahead and play a little bit of his video so you can see his video. Like I said, I'm not going to play the whole thing, or I'm not going to play it, at least not much of it. But just to see which video it is, so you can go watch it yourself, because it's not too bad of a video, except that he just downplays the significance of the descendants of the Y chromosome, which are, you can't mix up who you are. You can't confuse who you are. If you have an I lineage, you're from that lineage only, because of all the S&P markers, all the changes. And the Y chromosome changes faster than the mitochondrial DNA changes. So when Shem had Arpachshad had an S&P marker that he had in common with his uncle Japheth, because of course Japheth and Shem are brothers, so they can share an S&P marker. But then it delineates and separates, so that the IJ then has an IJ marker that nobody else has. So that it separates the IJ lineage from the IJK lineage, which is a bigger lineage, more broader lineage. But it is complicated, but it's not like you can't figure it out, because the main thing, the most important way to identify the lineage of Arpachshad is with the colon monohaplotype, which identifies the descendants of Aaron, the descendants of Moses' brother Aaron, of the tribe of Levi. who is the son of Jacob, descended from Abraham, Eber, and Arpachshad. So right there, the Cohen modal haplotype has to be that lineage that's descended from Shem. So turns out the IJ lineage is the lineage of Shem. From Arpachshad, descended from Shem. That's one of the sons of Shem. So the IJ lineage is identified by the Cohen modal haplotype because the Cohen modal haplotype is a J1P58. 50% of those claiming to be Cohen have this marker. There's no other haplogroup in existence. No other one can claim 50% as being possibly the descendants of Aaron. So if you check the E haplogroup, that doesn't come close. It's like maybe 3, 4, 5%. All of the other ones, 3, 4, 5%. Whether it's J2, whether it's E, B, T, whatever, none of them come close to being the descendants of Aaron, besides the Cohen modal people who have this marker, the Cohen modal haplotype, is a J1P58. And the Arabic populations are J1 too. They're J1 as well. And there might be some other Hebrews that are J2, possibly, But for the most part, J2 is descended from Judah. Hello, Sandy. How you doing? You saw the video? Dr. Carter got me going. Well, you might address it. Yep. He got me going. So, yeah. But anyway, let me just go ahead and show this video. Screen share. Which is, it's Dr. Carter. Let's see here.
When you're reading the Bible, it's natural to try to take the biblical events and put them onto geography and meld them into history and look at the linguistics and see maybe if
So this is Dr. Carter, Melbourne, Australia. He was scuba diving up in northern Australia or something. And he made this video, and which, if you didn't watch it, you can watch it. I mean, it can't hurt. I mean, he also downplayed my, or it's not even mine, but he downplayed the breakup of the continents. 100 years after the global flood, like I said, the sediment layers have to be deposited first before they can break apart. Just to begin with, besides all of the other evidence of the breakup being after the global flood. Oh, and there's a there's a geologist. The other geologist did a whole thing on floating mats. Trying to figure out how this species got in 2 different places in the world. There's, if I can find, I don't know if I can find it. Let me see. As well. See, it was this guy here. This one here. Okay. So, if you bear with this browser thing, it's going crazy. Is Genesis history? This is Genesis history.
My name is Kurt Wise. I'm a professor at Truett and Connell University in Cleveland, Georgia.
It's Dr. Kurt Wise. He goes through all these different things about how different species got to where they were.
Very thick rhythmites, and why they're a long ways from the
which is
sea.
another good,
So that was further evidence of
video
this.
as well. It's another good video.
It took 50 years to accept the Missoula floods, and we still haven't accepted.
Where does it go? So, anyways,
boulders in it that are huge. No way they can be moved around on shorelines.
Or is this,
I would suggest, and the rhythmites.
Maybe this is the wrong one. Is this the one? Is this the latest? No, this is 1 month ago. Was it? Anyways, he just did one where he's trying to explain. Where's the thing? I don't know. How do I do this? So he did one video where he goes and tries to reconcile how this certain species over in Asia is the same species over here in America, and it's just like many examples of trying to explain how they got from one continent to the other. Of course, if all the continents were together, that would be easily explained. Even because there's some of them wouldn't be able to cross through the Arctic because the Arctic is so cold because they're like microbes or whatever they are. But before the breakup, they weren't shoved up in the Arctic yet, so they could easily gone from one place or spread from one place to another. You know, besides the fact that it was a global flood to begin with, and they could have gone just two different directions. But anyways, you look so different without your glasses. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Dr. Rob Carter got me going. He got me going, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Well, I did something with the lighting, so my face isn't so red. I don't know. Because it's not red, it's just that low lighting conditions here. But otherwise, it'd be too bright. You can't see. But anyways, already, there's a problem with because when I was growing up, I was presented, and I'm just as old as Dr. Rob Carter. Maybe I don't know how old he is. I might even be older. I'm 66. I'm going to retire. But when I was going to school, they presented two ideas, at least, or two or more ideas. They said, well, some people believe the earth broke apart during the global flood, and some people believe it broke apart after the global flood, based on the verse that in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. Well, there was just a straight reading. It was in Bible class, Bible study. It was just a straight reading of what the Bible said. In the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. Then there were two interpretations were that it was the people that were divided. But the problem is that the text actually says the earth was divided. So they presented the two ideas. Some people says it means the people were divided, and other people say that it was the earth that was divided. So I've, kept this in the back of my mind for all this time, 50 years or more. And then when I come across all this evidence, of the glacial striations in India, not only India, but Africa, Australia, South America, that show that they were once connected to Antarctica after the global flood, after the sediments were deposited. And Rob Carter says no to that. So, that doesn't impress me much. But anyways, he is a geneticist, and the the DNA is complicated. The lineages are complicated, both the maternal and the paternal haplogroups. But with all the study that we've been doing, is if one thing was out of place, it would mess up the whole thing. But everything is fitting together so well that I just can't ignore it, and I have to show what the evidence is, regardless of what anybody else says, because I don't have to answer to somebody else. I can say what the evidence actually is, what I believe the evidence is. So I guess we can go through a little bit of it just to show. So we'll just go ahead to the, let me see, this here. We can start off here with this one here. Oops, I didn't share yet. What am I doing? Let me go ahead and add this here. The other video I was talking, I didn't even share. But anyways, let me see. Try again. Over here. So this is the mitochondrial lineage. This is harder. This one is harder to put names to the individuals because, of course, we don't have all the names. But we do know that, for example, since Japheth had 7 sons, we know that for a fact, we can presume that he didn't have as many daughters. So we could say maybe he had 1, 2, 3, 4 daughters and 7 sons. While Shem had 5 sons, and we can presume to say he had more daughters. So we can say Shem had 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or 6 daughters. So he had more daughters than he had sons, and maybe more. But it is recorded in history that Madai asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. So everywhere the beads go, everywhere the Q haplogroup goes, there's a lineage of A, maternal mitochondrial DNA lineage that accompanies the QY haplogroup wherever it goes. So you have the A, plus if you go all down this way down to the stem, you can see, there was a split, and it's in Europe, it's O, X, and W. Remember the X2A that's found in both the Great Lakes region and Galilee? The X2A, that's a specific lineage, mitochondrial lineage. That's both in Galilee and Native American Indians in the Great Lake region. But it's the same Semitic lineage of A that crossed the Atlantic with the Q haplogroup to Central America and spread out from Central America. So everywhere the Medes went, this A accompanies them, but they also have the C and the D that accompanies them to America as well. So the C and the D are daughters of Japheth that, since they were Eurasian, because Madai is one of the sons of Japheth as well, that the C and the D lineage became part of the group that went to Central America, along with the A lineage, mitochondrial lineage as well. And we followed the lineages of A, C, and D, as well as the QY haplogroup that crossed from off the coast of Africa to Central America, spreading out north and south from there. And they all do the same thing. We've observed that lineage. So the Q haplogroup goes to Central America, spreads north and south. The A goes to Central America, spreads north and south. The C goes to Central America and spreads north and south. The D goes to Central America and spreads north and south. So that's a confirmation that is absolute, because DNA, the lineages of DNA are absolute, regardless of what some might say. They are absolute lineages. You cannot jump from this lineage, being this lineage, to being this lineage. That's just absurd. That is totally absurd. It's one of the things Dr. Carter suggested that could happen, which is totally absurd. You can't jump from being B to being a JT. That is totally absurd, because there's too many S&P markers that are JT, and each lineage is absolutely its own lineage. Of course, it'll branch off from the A will branch off into different lineages, and the B will branch off into different lineages, but they're not going to cross from being a B to an O or an X or a W. That's just absurd. The DNA evidence is absolute. It's absolute evidence. The L's, for all intents and purposes, never left Africa. In other words, when Kush and his other brothers went to Africa, they took all these L lineages with them to Africa. So that's the reason why they're all in Africa. They don't leave Africa until much later. So this L lineage, we can easily and safely say that they are the daughters of Ham, which might be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, because the mitochondria doesn't change that much. It could be as many as $5. Well, here it's 6 or 5. I don't know. It says L4 and 6. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But it's L1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As many as 5 daughters of Ham. But these are all definitely, absolutely daughters of Ham. And the same thing can be said of the daughters of Japheth. These are absolutely, positively Eurasian daughters of Eurasia. In fact, they only exist in East Asia. I mean, the majority exist in East Asia. And they don't even exist very much in Western Europe. Western Europe, they have the Semitic O, X, and W, and then they also have the U, the K, the H, V, and R, and the JT. You have the JT, the U, the K, and the HVR in Europe. 95% of Europeans have these haplogroups. Mine is H3G. Because I'm European. But it's a Semitic mitochondrial haplogroup, Semitic maternal haplogroup. And this is undeniable, because remember, you can't jump from one lineage to another. You can't jump from IS to a C or a D. You can't do that, because there's too many identifying factors of this lineage. There's too many markers that identify each of the lineages. So anyway, let me see. I don't know if I go back down here. Let me find the other one. This one here. This is the Y chromosome haplogroup. So this is this is the same thing. What they doing? I'm getting lost here. Find the other one. Where's the other one? There it is. Try this. There it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right. And hopefully I am sharing here. Yeah, it looks like I'm sharing. So, likewise, this is, this is, you can't mix these up. Of course, the lineages in Africa have a lot of genetic mutations. So there's a lot more genetic distance than in some of the lineages in Africa. And the other ones, not so much. This one here I think is Mitzrayim. I think this is E1, E3. This is E2. So I think this is E3. Either way, yeah, I think just from the spread here, this is probably Mitzrayim E3. So, and this is undeniable. I mean, plus you have the C and the D lineages, which are actually C branches off from the A and the B, actually branches off right there from the A and the B. And the C can only be one person. The C that branches off of A and B can only be one person, and that's the house of Nimrod. And whenever you talk about a king having many sons, by having many sons, he's reinforcing his DNA. So, for example, if we only have one or two sons, that's not going to represent your DNA in the world's population as much as especially the first king of the world, who had many, many, many sons and reinforced his features, his genes, many times over, which would then duplicate and carry on through the generations. This is very important to understand. And of course, the D is also Hamitic, but it's not Kushite. The D haplogroup of the Tibetans and Japanese is Hamitic, but it's not Kushite. It's actually compatible with the E. So the CF marker that Nimrod, the descendants of Nimrod, shares with the rest of the world of Japheth and Shem, C shares an S&P marker with the rest of the world, while the D and the E do not. Not only the D and the E do not share that marker, the A and the B don't share that marker either. Possibly because of the many mutations of the A and the B, but for whatever reason, the C, being the oldest son of Cush, can share an S&P marker with the descendants of Shem and with the descendants of Japheth, which it does. That's called the CF marker. XDE. So the C has it, the D and the E do not have that marker. Because, of course, D is from E2, which is Canaan, and E3 is Mitzrayim, and E1 is Put, descendants of Put. So, and if you notice, this E2 is not a very large lineage. This one being in probably Central Africa, but the E2 is Canaan. There's not many descendants of Canaan or E2 in the world today. But Canaan is survived, you might say, by the Sinai tribe. The Sinai tribe, the namesake of Sinai, that went to Sino-Japan and Sino-China. And today, his descendants, the descendants of the Sinai tribe, are in Asia, throughout Asia, mostly in Japan, southern China, and Tibet. And they are Hamitic descendants in Asia. And you can clearly distinguish, at least I can, from by way of the features. Because the let's see what I was going to say. The D haplogroup is the Denisovans, yeah. So the D is in the area. Not only is it in Japan and Tibet, the D is also in the area of the Altai Mountains, where the Denisovans are, or were. At least the Denisova cave is in the Altai Mountains. So there's a big mystery of how did a Denisovan get up into that area? How did a mix of Eurasian and Hamitic genes get up into the Altai Mountains? And there you have your answer right there. And if it wasn't the D, the C is in the same area as well, which is the descendants of Nimrod, which is also Hamitic, which also strongly carries the features of Cush, Nimrod being a descendant of Cush. But this D is in that area of the Altai Mountains, besides being in Japan and Tibet and southern China. It is in the area of the Denisova cave. So that's why most people with the Denisovan DNA, with the most Denisovan DNA, are in like South Asia, because of the Hamitic influence in South Asia. And of course, we've been over many times the Olmec statues, or the Olmec heads, with features of probably the kings at the time, which they look Polynesian. To me, they look Polynesian. That's because in Polynesia, they're descended from the lineage, the C2 lineage, and in South America, they're descended from the C3 lineage, which means they both have the same common ancestor, Nimrod, who is a Cushite, descended from Cush, who reinforced his genes throughout the populations. Now, like I said, if one of these details were wrong, it would throw off the whole thing, but it doesn't. So here is what I was talking about, the two separate F lineages. You have this F lineage here, which is separate from the H lineage and totally separate from the F2 lineage. F2 lineage is way over here more comparable to the Assyrian. The F1 lineage is more comparable to the Elamites. So this FY chromosome is separate from this F2 lineage. It's a totally separate person. So this one, if this, let's say for example, if this F lineage here is the one found, the lineage found along the trade routes that the Arameans controlled all the way to India, then this F lineage, then that F lineage would be the F lineage of the Arameans. And if this F2 lineage is more in the area of the Anatolia, that would be the Lydians. So that's why F1 is the Arameans and F2 would be the Lydians. And of course, G is the Assyrian, H is the Elamites, and the IJ lineage is the lineage of Arpachshad. Notice how the I branches off from the J lineage. It's hard to know which I that they were testing, or because it doesn't differentiate here between the I1 and I2, nor does it differentiate between the J1 and the J2. So, and it's like everything has to fit perfectly. And this lineage here, the O and the N, I've assigned as Magog because this is in the area of Magog. And this is another lineage that went east. While the K lineage, I've identified as the lineage of Tubal because they went to Italy, and 8% of the population in central Italy today is K. 8% is a huge percentage, surviving lineage of Tubal in Italy today. Of course, K went as far as Papua New Guinea as well, in southern China, as does the O, and as does the P, which is missing from here. The P lineage I have identified now as Meshech because it's a separate lineage, and I didn't know that it was an actual lineage of a population both in Asia or Eastern Asia and in Eastern Europe. So this P is in Eastern Europe, the same as the O, and the K, of course, is in Europe and Italy. And then, but the Q is a separate lineage, and the R is a separate lineage. So the Q is the Medes of Madai, and the R is the descendants of Gomer, which is Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. Again, if one thing was out of place, it would throw off the whole thing. And the T over here is Mediterranean, the same as the L is of the Greek Thracians. Only the L is more mainland, Greece. The T is more the islands of the Mediterranean. And throughout the Mediterranean, of course, Anatolia. And the only Jewish population that has a T is the Bragança Jews in Portugal. The other Jewish populations, most don't even have a T. If they do have it, it's not very much in their population. Because Sephardic Jews don't even have it, with the exception of that one. That one is about 14 or 15% of the Bragança Jews that have the T because of their proximity to Tarshish in Iberia. So the T is in Portugal because of Tarshish in Iberia. Again, if one of these things were off, it would throw off the whole thing. But everything fits together so perfectly, it's really amazing. Of course, the N is Siberians, the O is East Asians, which separated a long time back. But they are Eurasian. All of these are Eurasian. They're all European or Asian. The R2 is more in the area of India, which is Central Asia, and then the O is more East and South Asia and South Pacific. And of course, the K and the O and the P are all located in South Asia and in Eastern Asia. So that's basically it right there. So can you identify the descendants of Noah? I would say absolutely you can identify them, because you can't confuse them. These are descendants of Cush, descendants of Ham. These are descendants of Shem. These are descendants of Japheth. You can't confuse them. You can't jump from one being one to being another, because they all separate from the center, from Noah. And of course, if you want to identify the Y chromosome of Noah, which some people ask me that sometimes, I think Dr. Rob Carter mentioned it. What's the Y chromosome of Noah? It's easy. It's A through T. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. That's the Y chromosome of Noah. So there you have it. It's very, very simple, very easy to understand. And see what Sandy was saying here. Okay, it's 10:30 p.m. Good job, bye-bye. There we go. Yeah, here it's 4:30. I already woke up. It's 4:30 in the morning here. And I saw Dr. Rob Carter's video, and he got me going. I had to make a video. So, he says there's no molecular clock that is right. That's throwing a spanner in the works. Well, the molecular clock, what he's talking about, I think, is genetic distance. And you can't use genetic distance as a measure of time, or as an accurate measure of time. You can't use genetic distance as an accurate measure of time. That's true, because of the genetic distance of, say, the Cushites doesn't mean that they're an older lineage, which is what the secular people got wrong, because the secular people want to root the tree right here with the A. That's why they started off with A. They thought the root of the tree was A. They thought the root of the tree because of the genetic distance. They thought this was the older lineage. But it's not a measure of age. It's a measure of the number of mutations, which is not a measure of age, not necessarily a measure of age. Because the mutation rate is clearly different in all the lineages, because every single one of these lineages are all the same age, whether it's T, whether it's A, whether it's Q, R1A, R1B, whatever. They're all the same exact age. So it's not a measure of age. Genetic lineage is not a measure of age. It's a measure of the number of mutations. It's genetic distance, not age. And that's simple. That's not too complicated. That haplogroup explosion happens in the Middle East, so that kind of destroys the out of Africa idea. Right. And the the majority of the people, the people with the greatest diversity is in Asia or the Middle East. And that does destroy both mitochondrial chromosome, haplogroups and the Y chromosome. So both of them have more diversity in, say, Central Asia or whatever, not Africa. But Donnie and Matt do response video as well. Yeah, I don't know what they think actually about that. See, just seeing your comments on Dr. Carter's video. Hope he reads them. I think he has. I think it might be the reason. Might be the reason for the video in the first place, because somebody might have said, "Well, so and so saying something, such and such." So he had to make a video without naming anybody, of course. Wouldn't want to name me. So, anyways, yeah, time for sleeping. I just woke up, so it's time for me to wake up. And yeah, let me see. Guess that's about it. Other than that, we have the breakup of the continents. I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have any of these screenshots here. But the breakup of the continents. But they broke up clearly. There's this one. But this is not my regular computer. This is the other computer. So, yeah. Anyway, maybe some other time I can talk about the breakups. But like Dr. Kurt Wise just had the video. He just came out with a video where he names a whole bunch of difficult things to understand how could they happen, because he explains it in the video. His most recent video, Dr. Kurt Wise's video, which I played the wrong one. I don't know if I could find that one. Let's see, we're still sharing. Okay, here we go. But I guess it's his most recent video, so let me just go straight to his things here. Just 1 month, I don't know, videos. 15 hours ago. Yeah, this is the one. How did animals spread around the world? This is a funny one too. I might as well include Dr. Kurt Wise too. Of course, I'm not going to play the whole video. And my browser's acting up here, going crazy. Anyways, how did animals spread around the world after Noah's flood?
My name is Kurt Wise, a professor at McConnell University in Cleveland, Georgia. I'm going to talk about how it is that organisms got from the ark out to the various corners of the world, at least a hypothesis that I think will help in our understanding of that period of time.
Okay, here goes into the floating mats, the floating log mats that carried everything to where it is, which really doesn't explain everything, and he goes into it in this video. You can watch the whole video yourself. It's not a bad video. I don't think, not too bad. Because it's got a lot of information about a lot of different animals that are hard to explain how they got there. And of course, if you realize that the earth broke apart in the days of Peleg, none of this is a problem, because the waters were temperate before they got shoved up into the Arctic. and everything. The whole globe was connected after the global flood, anyways. So it is a problem for the narrative of having the Earth break apart during the global flood, as opposed to 100 years after the global flood. Because if you see the Earth breaking up after the flood, it's a whole lot easier to understand. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, everything. I mean, obviously, the the jaguar walked to South America, who's the cousin of the leopard. It's the same thing, the same exact thing as a leopard, only that Africa is a different environment than South America today. That's why the jaguar is different from the leopard, but it's really the same animal. But there's no problem explaining how the jaguar got to South America when you understand that they were connected 100 years after the global flood, because the animals got to where they were going, but the people were too busy building the Tower of Babel for 100 years until the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided. Then, when the earth catastrophically broke apart and shortened the lifespan of people a second time, it cut it in half a second time. It was such a traumatic event that everyone isolated into their family groups, stopped building the Tower of Babel, and began speaking their own language. Now you know the rest of the story. Anyway, and there's so much evidence. I got videos explaining it, and it's so easy to understand. And the main thing is the stamp, the seal. It's like the glacial striations at the South Pole are like a seal stamped on the continents, showing where they were located before they broke apart, which was obviously after the global flood, because the glaciers were after the global flood. India has glacial striations from when it was connected to Antarctica. Australia has glacial striations, the same striations from when it was connected to Antarctica. South Africa has glacial striations from when it was connected to Antarctica. South America has glacial striations from when it was connected to South America. They all have the stamp, the seal, as it were, a seal stamped on top of the bedrock of from the time that they were connected to Antarctica at the South Pole, before they broke apart, before they moved north, and they were, by way of centrifugal force, shoved up into the Arctic, and it totally changed the climate, froze the mammoths, buried the mammoths in tsunamis, and all the animals, bears, wolves, bison, lions, all buried by huge mega tsunamis from when the continents were shoved up into the Arctic. Everything explained. It's so easy to understand when you believe what the Bible says, word for word, that the earth was divided in the days of Peleg. Anyway, you can watch that video as well. That's very, very interesting, because of how many hard to explain animals there are, with with the idea that it broke apart during the global flood instead of after the global flood. If it was after the global flood, there'd be no problem explaining any of this stuff. Be no problem explaining it. But if you believe it broke apart during the global flood, then you have a problem, and he highlights all these problems. But he's got an idea that's floating mats, but it doesn't explain all of the problems. So you can watch that video if you want. It's very interesting as well. So, 2 videos. Got 2 videos in one day to comment on. So it's really good. All right, everybody. Looks like we're doing good. We got 0 watches at 4:48 in the morning. So That's not so bad. All right. Everybody take care and stay close to the truth of God's word, and you cannot go wrong. You will never be disappointed. You will never be ashamed. You will always have your head lifted high. You won't be looking down. You won't be depressed because you know the absolute truth in the Bible is the Word of God. It's absolutely true. And it explains everything. And it's just an amazing thing. And the Y chromosome lineages and the mitochondrial DNA limit, the mitochondrial lineages, that's DNA too. Um, they're absolute lineages. You can't jump from one lineage to another. They're absolute. You are who you are descended from. Absolutely. Your maternal lineage and your paternal lineage. Two lineages that you have, you can do a test and you can determine with absolute certainty which lineage you belong to. It's absolute. DNA is absolute. And when you understand that the lineages existed simultaneously, that makes a lot more sense too, because the Y chromosome goes from, supposedly, the out of Africa scenario goes from the African to the Semitic to the Eurasian, thinking that one descended from the other, or claiming that one descended from the other, when in fact they didn't descend, they existed simultaneously. But then the maternal lineage goes from the African to the Eurasian, and then to the Semitic. Hello, Iron Man. How you doing? Morning. I'm just finishing up here with this video. I have two commentaries on two different young Earth scientists, one Dr. Carter and the other Dr. Kurt Wise. And how, all the evidence is supporting the things we've been following on this channel. That is the different lineages and also the breakup of the continents. So I guess that's about it. Hopefully I didn't forget too much. So everybody take care. I guess it's good for now. All right. God bless everybody. Take care. All right. There you go. Driving to work. There you go. All right. Have a nice day at work and a nice weekend, everybody. Hope everybody voted, gets out to vote. This is very important, of course. God bless everybody. Take care.